6:30. You're live here on GHOne TV. It's now time for News Tonight with me, Natalie, for a look at our top stories. Coming up this evening, Importers and Exporters Association raised concerns as Ghana hit with 10% U.S. reciprocal tariff.
Healthy idea. I don't know what came into his mind. I don't know what you have said for him to impose such a 10% rate on us. But it's a big blow to Ghana, and I think that it will be a challenge. It will affect the business community, especially those who export into that country.
Meanwhile, minority slams government over 10% U.S. tariffs, says it lacks response plan for exporters. Also coming up, ASEPA accuses Auditor General of abuse of office, demanding his immediate removal. In business tonight, e-levy officially scrapped. EIB Business Desk engages mobile money vendors and customers who express relief. And ahead in entertainment, Black Sheriff returns with his highly anticipated sophomore album, Iron Boy. Bring you these stories and much more news here on News Tonight Tuesday. You're watching News Tonight here on GH1 TV. All across the world, you can watch us. All across the world, you can watch us on Facebook and X at GH1 TV. We get started with insights. Insights this evening, we put focus on what appears to be U.S. trade war as the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana has expressed concern over the new 10% tariff imposed by the United States on most goods entering the country, describing it as a major setback for trade and industry. On Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order slapping tariffs on over 150 countries, including Ghana, as part of his administration's push to correct what he calls unfair trade relations. Speaking on Thursday morning, the executive secretary of the IEAG, Asaki Samson Awengobit, warned of the potential economic damage to Ghanaian businesses and urged the government to negotiate better trade terms with the United States.
The U.S. government have done is a big blow to us. You know, we have this AGUA program with them. This is a bilateral and multilateral decisions that we sign with each country to deal with businesses. And so now that he's imposing 10% on us, what it means is that any of our export that goes there, you have to pay a duty component of 10%, which is a cost. This could lead up to a low reduction of our export to that country. It can also affect our people who have hands, let's say employees who are working with them, because if he's not getting more supplies to supply, then what it means that he cannot maintain his employees, and so it's going to lead up to job losses. I strongly believe that the government of Ghana should come out to speak, because this has to do with international relationship, and so the Minister of Foreign Affairs will have to make a statement on behalf of the government, or the spokesperson to the president will have to make a statement. What is government thinking? What is government decision? I have seen the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, trying to do damage control, but the truth of the matter is that the orders have been signed. If it's true it has been signed, then they are going to impose on us, and that's going to be a challenge on the business community.
Let's stay on this issue a while longer and speak with Group Executive Director for the African Continental Free Trade Network, Ghana. That's Louisiel Afo. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, first of all, paint a picture of just how significant this 10% tariff is and which industries we are likely to see most affected.
Good evening. Good evening to your viewers. I think that the tariffs was slapped on. They have not been very specific with the kind of product, but you're looking at our major exports to the US, and you're looking at commodities like gold. You're looking at crude oil, and you're also looking at, I think, cocoa. And so these are major ones. Then you have other, cocoa bean, cocoa powder, and other few things that we really export to the US. And so it's targeting. It's not specific, but it's a reciprocal kind of tariff slap.
Right. Now, you just raised a point that leads me to my next question. Yes, the U.S. President Donald Trump did describe this as reciprocal tariff. With that being the case, describe what sort of leverage that Ghana has in terms of negotiating. Are we likely to see anything in that regard?
I mean, this is, I don't know what we want to negotiate. If you listen to the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador, she said, look, our relationship continues. I mean, this kind of tariffs, all it's trying to say is that, look, we want to have a 50-50 relationship with you. And at best, we want to be on trade surplus. That is the aim of this kind of tariffs. So it's about to his gain. So it's not about negotiating. And it's based upon the trade deficit they have with you. So, for example, the U.S. should have looked all over the years. Let's take Ghana. I think last year, 2024, we seem to have over the 1.2 billion trade deficit with the U.S. And we were able to import close to about, it looks like about $970 million. About 700 there, about 700 to 900. Now, they had a deficit of 1.2 billion. So look, in other words, it's looking at the fact that they are losing. And they feel that, no, they want to have a surplus with you. So this is this. We slap this on you. So what are you going to negotiate for? He wants it to his advantage. What you could do is that if you also have the advantage and you think that, look, I could slap these tariffs on the US and then at the end of the day still make my surpluses. So be it. Because it looks as if it's not negotiable.
Now, Louis, with that being said, finally, we've already got the minority making a point that the government isn't quite dealing with this effectively. But you say there's nothing much to negotiate in this context. How about government? I mean, if the government doesn't act quickly, what sort of actions, if any, are you hoping to see from government? And what could the long-term effects on businesses be?
Actually, it's fact is that it's a cost to the exporter. It's a cost to the exporter, and not only the exporter, but those within the exportable chain. So, for example, if I'm the final exporter, and like you heard the Secretary of Export and Import said, I'm the final exporter. All those within the chain, middle to the source, are also going to be affected, and then finally consumers are going to be affected. What government should do is government should look for alternative pattern or markets. Like the ASCFTA, we should boost intra-African trade. At the end of the day, for you to have a fair, good terms of trade, your final product should be commanding the price. And these are mostly, we've seen it around tech, innovative products. Most of the products that we, especially within the West Africa, the African Continental Free Trade, are mostly agrarian products, raw products, semi-finished products. And so it doesn't attract higher terms of trade. And so we should be looking at the alternative market available to us in Africa. A critical example is it's unimaginable that Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire have the highest bean exporters. Yet when it comes to the revenue from chocolate, what do we command? We have just little. So Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire came into a bargaining agreement about 3 years ago to call the shots, to make sure that we have adding more value to our beans. before export. So we need to look at alternative pattern market within Africa, taking advantage of the African continental free trade.
Afo, as always, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts on this issue. Well, let's stay on this topic of this U.S. Trade war. Joining us in studio is national security law and U.S. foreign relations expert based in Washington, D.C. That's GHOne LeBlanc. GHOne, thank you so much for being with us here in studio. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Right. Now, on this issue, we've got the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, Virginia Palmer, reassuring that relations are not going to be strained. However, with that being said, how much of an impact do you think that this 10% tariff imposition will have on our bilateral relations?
I don't think it necessarily impact bilateral relations, but it certainly impact trade relations, right? 10%, it's a bit steep, right? And those that 10% will have to be passed on to consumers, because the reality is that when you impose tariffs, it's not the company that pays it, right? Most companies cannot bear the cost, right? It's often passed on to the consumers, right? And we have, and Ghana in particular has a number of products that it imports to the United States market. Like, for example, cocoa, right? U.S. is a major buyer of cocoa. So that means that for those types of products, the more that, companies have to pay, and the more that they're charging consumers, that means there's going to be a less demand for it, which will ultimately impact your farmers in Kumasi, your farmers even your traders here in Accra. So this will have significant impact. While Ghana has only been hit with just a 10% tariff, but we see countries like Lesotho and South Africa have been hit with much steeper tariffs.
Now, that's a key point there, mentioning other countries, because, of course, it's not just Ghana, even within West Africa. What potential national security implications could this have?
Well, in terms of national security, I don't think there's much implication,
right.
But I think in terms of the economy, I think it's going to have some kind of impact on the economy. However, what I think is important for governments to consider is look at ways to engage in trade with the United States. Right now, you have AGOA, right, and AGOA is going to be gravely impacted, if not canceled completely. As you know, President Trump prefers the production of products in the United States, so domestic production over products being created and manufactured abroad and then sent into the American market. And that was the whole premise of AGOA. So I think now countries need to start looking at a free trade agreement with the United States. I know Kenya is in the talks with the United States, as well as President Ramaphosa announced today that he will be looking at a free trade agreement. But I think it's important, though, to ensure that whatever free trade agreement that countries enter into with the United States does not undermine the implementation of the AFCFTA.
Now, I'm talking about AGOA, that's the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Yes. Right. Now, finally, what sort of advice, you've touched on it briefly, but just expanding as we round up, what sort of advice would you give to Ghanaian policymakers in terms of how to best tackle this? We had our earlier speaker saying that there's not quite much negotiating to do, right? But what sort of advice will you give to policymakers in Ghana to best tackle and deal with this?
Sure. I think now is a great opportunity for Ghana and countries across the continent to accelerate the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, right? As we see, countries being hit with tariffs. Today it's 10%. Tomorrow it might be 20%, right? Our economies are a bit unpredictable right now as we speak. I mean, the United States' closest allies, like Canada and Mexico, trade allies in particular, have been hit with even much steeper tariffs. So I think that now is the time to accelerate the implementation of the AFCFTA, and also to, as Ghana is considering a free trade agreement with the United States, to make sure that it consults with the AFCFTA Secretariat to make sure that whatever language that is in the free trade agreement does not undermine the implementation of the AFCFTA. But this is the time, this is the moment for Africa to rise up and work together and trade with each other. We're talking about a trade agreement, if done properly, has the potential of increasing the GDP of this continent in the trillions of dollars, and also lifting more than 30 million people out of extreme poverty. So this is quite significant.
This is the time to take advantage of AFTA.
This is the time.
Well, thank you so much, GHOne LeBlanc, for joining us in studio, national security law and U.S. foreign relations experts joining us on that issue. Certainly more on it subsequently. You're watching News Tonight here on GH1 TV. That wraps up Insight. You're watching News Tonight here on GHOne TV. In some other news this evening, some top stories. The Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, has petitioned President John Dramani Mahama to begin the constitutional process for the immediate removal of Auditor General Mr. Johnson Asiedu from office. The petition filed today, April 3, accuses the Auditor General of high crime, misconduct, abuse of office and violations of the Constitution. ASEPA's petition, signed by the organization's executive director, Mr. Mensa Thompson, calls for the activation of the constitutional procedures outlined in Article 187, Section 13 of the 1992 Constitution. The petition outlines several serious allegations against Mr. Asiedu, including failure to comply with Supreme Court directives, collaboration with the Audit Service Board, unlawful retention of public funds, and abuse of discretionary powers. Now via Zoom is the Executive Director of ASEPA, Mensa Thompson. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, first of all, just clarify if there is specific evidence that ASEPA has gathered to inform this petition and what these are.
Well, thank you very much. Very good evening to your cherished viewers. Yes, the evidence are a lot, and like we've stated in the petition, the evidence raised from abuse of office, so violation of the Constitution, flouting of the Supreme Court directive, unlawful retention of funds, and and other violations which we believe are in contravention not just of the Constitution but the Public Financial Management Act, the Audit Service Act, and also other relevant provisions such as the PPA Act. And so the violations are a lot, and we've attached evidence of all these numerous violations to the petition and has been sent to the presidency.
Right, so this petition has at this stage been formally submitted to the president?
Yes.
Right. Carry on.
The constitutional processes for the removal of the Auditor General from office follows the same pattern as the removal of the Chief Justice from office under Article 146. And so it requires that you file a petition to the president. The president will look to establish a prima facie basis in consultation with the Council of State. Then, after which a committee will be set up to look into the merits of the petition. The committee will make a recommendation to the president, and then the president will proceed to take its final decision on the matter.
Right. Now, you just referred to it being similar to that of the removal of the CJ. Now, how would you respond to those that are of the view that this petition is somewhat politically motivated?
Like I've said earlier, you cannot remove the Auditor General from office just based on political basis. No, you must have viable evidence, credible evidence to warrant such an action. To remove the Auditor General from office is a very serious matter. And so if the Auditor General has not committed any offense, has not violated any law, if none of the issues we've raised in the petition are untrue, then he has no issue. But if there are real issues of constitutional violations as stated in our petition, then his removal from office cannot be labeled as a witch hunt, because once you violate the law, then the constitutional processes must apply.
And finally, with that being said, what are your hopes for this process? Of course, it's a petition for his removal, but then beyond that, how are you looking at the issue of public accountability being dealt with in Ghana in the long haul in the event that he is removed?
Yes, so it's in that vein that we are looking. We believe that the president's quest to reset the country, the president's desire to improve on accountability, transparency in our governance processes, the president's effort to improve the efficient utilization of public resources, we believe will not come to fruition if the current auditor continue to stay in office because he is an instrumental part at the center of the accountability of the state. And so we hope that there will be a paradigm shift in the face of the audit service and entire Auditor General's department, that the Supreme Court's directive in the Occupy Ghana case, which requires that public officers who misappropriate funds or misuse or misapply public funds should be surcharged and made to refund these monies back to the state. Those rules will be respected by the incoming Auditor General. We are also hoping that the constitutional processes, which requires that all monies retained by the Auditor General retrieved should go straight into the consolidated fund, would go straight into the consolidated fund and not go into an individual account called the Auditor General's recovery account, which is what is currently being done by the current Auditor General, moving these funds into his recovery account when the money is supposed to be in the consolidated fund. So, we just want a total improvement in the face of public accountability, and we hope that some way, somehow, our petition helps to achieve that. I just also want to reiterate that we are not prejudiced against the Auditor General, and so we expect that the constitutional processes are followed suit, and that he is given the right to be heard and respond adequately, and that he's given a fair hearing as a principle of natural justice applies. And then whichever outcome, if the president believes that the issues raised in the petition are not strong enough to warrant his removal from office, we are happy to accept that. But not until the issues are being looked into.
Very
first.
Well. Thank you for joining us this evening. Mentor Thompson, the Executive Director of SEPA. Certainly more on that issue subsequently. You're watching News Tonight here on GHOne TV. Do stay with us. Welcome back to News Tonight here on GHOne TV. Let's head to the courts now as the Supreme Court has granted the NDC and its 4 parliamentary candidates permission to submit additional documents in support of their challenge to the reversal of the High Court's ruling on mandamus applications. This move is part of the NDC's certiorari application, which contests Justice Forsin Barr's decision compelling the Electoral Commission to compile outstanding results and declare winners. The EC has since declared Tema Central, Okainkwe Central and Techiman South with Ablekuma North pending following the High Court's January 4 ruling. On Thursday, April 3, 2025, a single Supreme Court judge, Justice Yao Darko Asari, granted the NDC's request to respond to the Electoral Commission's arguments. Our legal affairs correspondent, Murtala Inusa, has more.
The Supreme Court has granted the National Democratic Congress the opportunity to be able to respond to certain depositions made by the Electoral Commission and its affidavit in opposition to their request before the court for certiorari and prohibition, seeking to quash Justice Forsin Barr's ruling on January 4 in relation to the mandamus application filed by the NPP candidate, which the High Court, based on that, to urge or to compel the Electoral Commission to go and compile outstanding election results and then declare winners, for which reason 3 out of the 4 constituencies have been declared. The NDC want that reversed. Today, they have moved that application. Seth Nyaba, who led the parties in court today, moved that particular application for extension of time. The EC opposed to that, but the court was of the considered view that in the interest of justice, the application be granted. Subsequently, the court has ordered the NDC to file their processes within 7 days from today. The EC and the other interested parties will also have 7 days upon receipt to be able to respond to that. But counsel for the NDC, Seth Nyaba, has been speaking to me.
In the EC's statement of case, they made reference to a letter that was written by the EC to the Minority Caucus in 2020 in relation to the Techiman South parliamentary election issues in 2020. But that letter is not before the court. So it's part of the reasons why we want to attach that letter to our supplementary affidavit in response to the EC's affidavit in opposition to our application. And then in the EC statement of case, they've also raised some fundamental legal issues which we deem it necessary to respond to by way of writing.
The EC accused him of sleeping, for which reason they should not be granted the opportunity. He has this short reply for that.
We're not sleeping. We're having challenge in terms of serving the second to safe interested parties. So that clearly affected us in terms of keeping the time in check. In terms of factual and legal matters, unless something else happens, with legal issues, you can't tell what is in store.
Once the parties are done filing all their processes, the Supreme Court would then fix a date for the hearing of the substantive matter. From the Supreme Court here in Accra, Murtala Inusa, GHOne.
In other news, the Central Regional Police Command has taken 2 individuals into custody for allegedly transporting electricity cables suspected to belong to the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG. The suspects, identified as Mohammed Suleimana and Idrisu Basit, both drivers mates of an articulated truck, were apprehended on April 1, 2025 at Gomwa in the Central Region. The vehicle, registered as GC741011, was found parked at Gomwa with 28 rims of ECG cables on board. Officials from the ECG, led by Operations Officer Mr. David Akum, verified that the cables were their property, but noted that no such consignment was scheduled for delivery in the area. Currently, the truck remains under police surveillance as authorities intensify efforts to locate and apprehend the truck driver, Zibo Imoro, who is on the run. Investigations into the matter are still ongoing. Well, let's stay in that region as the police officer, Constable GHOne Kwabena Dogbe, has tragically lost his life after drowning in the River Ofin at Asin Asman during an operation against illegal mining, also known as Galamsey. The officer was part of a swoop led by the Central North Regional Police Command to curb illegal mining activities, destroying the environment. As the team approached, some miners fled, attempting to escape by crossing the river. While navigating the difficult terrain to seize and destroy mining equipment, Constable Dogbe lost his footing and slipped into the water. Despite rescue efforts, his body was recovered after a 4-hour search. He was transported to the St. Francis Xavier Hospital in Asin Fosu, where medical personnel confirmed his demise. His remains have since been preserved at the facility. The Central North Regional Police Command has expressed deep condolences to the family of the deceased, and authorities have launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding his death, while the police has vowed to continue the fight against illegal mining. Let's stay on developments within the Central Region, joined by our Central Regional correspondent, GHOne, for more on these developments. Good evening to you, Yao. Now, first of all, what more have you gathered as it pertains to this unfortunate death?
So, what I can say right now is that the incident happened this morning, and just within the Central Regional, Regional Minister and the regional police commander visited the family of this police constable, where they consulted the family members and promised the family members that they will support them. And as investigation is ongoing, but as I'm speaking right now, none of the Galamseyers has been arrested. So the police assured the general public and the family members of the disease that they will do their best to arrest all the perpetrators. But as of now, what I can say also is that the police, upon the operation, seized some of the equipment used and also set ablaze some of the equipment used by these Galamseyers. But as of now, the regional minister, together the Asin North Police Command, assured the family that they will do their possible best to assist them and also support the police personnel in the area as to how they will fight against this menace. So they will do their possible best to, keep the Galamsey issues down in the Central Region. But I can say, after this evening, the regional minister and the police command, together with some authorities, visited their family members and assured them that they will do an investigation to the matter. But none of the Galamseyers has been arrested.
None of them have been arrested. Yes. But just generally, do you see them carrying out their activities of mining in the area? From what you've observed following this incident?
Yes, we are sure that their best has been happening this morning. They are doing their best to fight against the Galamsey issues as the area and also give the police personnel more input to fight against the menace as the area.
GHOne, our Central Regional correspondent, thank you so much for your time this evening. And now, still on this, should note that there's been a news release from the police service, and we'll read out a few key sections as it's titled, Police Investigate the Death of General Constable GHOne Kwabena Dogbe. Now it reads that the Ghana Police Service is investigating the circumstances surrounding his death, which occurred on April 2, 2025 at Asin Domiabra in the Central Region. It further notes that preliminary investigation has revealed that the constable, who was part of the Central Regional North Police Anti-Galamsey Task Force, was deployed for duty and slipped and fell into the Ofin River. With the help of some divers, the constable was found after hours of intensive rescue efforts and conveyed to the Francis Xavier Hospital. The body is being conveyed to the police hospital's morgue for preservation and autopsy. The police administration is in touch with the deceased family to provide the needed support in these difficult times. And it concludes by noting that the task force was able to dismantle one Shan-Fan machine and take custody of 2 pumping machines, as well as 2 excavator batteries and 3 excavator keys and their chassis numbers. And it's signed by Mr. Francis Oninya, Public Affairs Directorate of the Central North Region. And that's the statement coming through from the Ghana Police Service, the regional police headquarters. In other news tonight, Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Kofi Bois, has described the fight against illegal mining as terrorism, as he has vowed the menace is completely going to be eradicated under his watch as the sector minister. This follows renewed calls by environmental advocacy groups for a declaration of a state of emergency. According to the Elembele MP, government will treat illegal miners as terrorists and further put in comprehensive measures to deal with the menace.
This fight is a collaborative effort and involves a lot of sector agencies, a lot of institutions. And I take the opportunity to urge all of these institutions, including the defense, the police, the judiciary, to play their part. I mean, this story, it goes to underscore the critical importance of the judiciary in this fight. So I'm very happy that Attorney General is taking the necessary step to try to reconstitute and bring back dedicated courts in dealing with these terrorists. And that's how we see them. They are terrorists. His Excellency President Mahama remains fully committed to his pledge to eradicate the illegal mining menace. And as a sector minister, I shall carry through this responsibility to the letter, no matter whose house is God. I want to take this opportunity to sound a note of caution to those involved in this illegal mining enterprise and their faceless collaborators hiding behind political polarization and influence, that any attempts to make calls and overtures to intercede for their notorious culprits will not succeed. The fight against illegal mining is a national priority, and a sustained collaboration is essential to ensure lasting success. I'll conclude.
Away from illegal mining, the Western North Regional Police Command has arrested 2 individuals for the illegal possession and discharge of firearms during a funeral ceremony. On April 2, at approximately 2 p.m., the Western North Police Intelligence Department, with support from the formed police unit, apprehended Frank Afoko, 41, and Kojo Ejipong, 31. The arrests follow investigations into a viral video from March 14, which captured individuals recklessly firing weapons at a funeral in Atakrum near Bibiani. The suspects, along with others who are still at large, were seen discharging firearms without lawful authority. Upon interrogation by the regional investigation team, the suspects admitted to being the individuals featured in the video. They are currently in police custody, assisting with further investigations. Meanwhile, efforts are ongoing to track down the remaining suspects. The Western North Regional Police Command reassures the public of its commitment to maintaining law and order and urges anyone with relevant information to come forward. Watching news tonight here on GHOne TV, we bring you business news next. Money Vendors Association of Ghana anticipates a sharp increase in transaction volumes following the government's repeal of the Electronic Transactions Levy, e-levy. The Ghana Revenue Authority, after President John Dramani Mahama assented to the repeal bill, has directed all charging entities to halt the tax measure. The GRA has also assured that all e-levy deductions made on April 2, 2025 will be refunded. Speaking on the development, General Secretary of the Mobile Money Vendors Association, Evans Otumfor, stated that the public's excitement over the repeal is expected to drive greater use of mobile money services.
We are expecting that once the levy is off, we'll be seeing a lot of traffic on the mobile money platform, which will translate into huge volumes and values. We are expecting uptake or a surge in the mobile money transactions following the cancellation of the e-levy. I mean, just for some years after the introduction of the levy, we have experienced a bit of shake-up in terms of the values and the volume. But now that anything that is an affront to the growth of transactions in terms of the volumes and the values are no more, we believe that we are really going to be experiencing some growth in the mobile money, and the utilization too is also going to increase. Ghanaians generally are very much okay and happy with the cancellation, and we believe that this happiness and this sense of awareness is really going to translate into some good figures or data in the coming months.
All the business news we've got for you. More news shortly. Do stay.
Well, welcome on to sports, where Ghanaian Panthers or bet investors have heaped praise on the government in reaction to the official abolishment of the betting tax. President John Mahama assented to the bill that abolished the betting tax and other levies, including the emissions tax and, of course, e-levy. My colleague GHOne has been interacting with Ghanaian Panthers on the abolishment of the betting tax and has come through with this report.
Claim this one, yawa. So, as in Charlie, I don't know. I make happy but I say some 1 or 2 stars there, for take on the system inside. The worry boys. Vex no day we see a normal vibe, so you can somebody back normal. Hey, good but I know good pass that we go be.
They worry me on Charlie, the best serve me, Charlie. I just take on 5 series and 2 series and 10s. How much I go get? So Charlie, as the jam there, good sick of I get the money. I feel take do something better about. Yeah.
Last week, then why yes, yeah, we are here, then show that. Yeah.
So how you feel?
Oh, sure, they be me, Charlie. I could find do worry with so Mama, I come there, Charlie, help Charlie. NDC.
Some interesting reactions from Panthers out there to the Phobian Club. Now, House of Folk were stunned by Nations FC at the Tuba Astro Turf in the Ghana Premier League. The Phobians struggled to break down a resilient Nations FC side and were undone by a second half goal from defender Zach Simpson. The game began on a frantic pace with House of Folk eager to dominate possession. They found it difficult to create clear chances. After a goalless first half, Nations broke the deadlock in the 57th minute, where Zach Simpson capitalized on a weak clearance and fired a powerful volley into the net, which had the first and only goal scored in the game today between House of Folk and Nations FC. That should be it for sports. Actually, I don't know which you support on the local front, though, but Hearts of Folk lost. Askodako also won. Which team do you support?
Well, thankfully, I don't support Hearts of Folk.
Kotoko, and a good one for you then. Because Kotoko won yesterday and Hearts have lost today. So good for the fabulous Lambs.
I support a good team. How about you?
I don't support anyone. That's it for sports. Though.
Thank you so much, Ben. Good having you with the sports segment there. You're watching News Tonight. We've got GHOne coming up shortly. Now, following the phenomenal success of his debut album, The Villain I Never Was, reigning TGMA Artist of the Year, Black Sheriff, returns with his highly anticipated sophomore album, Iron Boy. This 15-track masterpiece pays homage to his hometown high life legend, Amachi Day. Unique artist there, Black Sheriff. Congratulations to him. That does it for GHOne this evening. But let's take some local stories before we wrap up, as Minister for Health Kwabena Minta Kando has inaugurated a 15 implementation steering committee for Ghana's National Surgical Obstetric and Anesthesia Plan 2025 to 2029 to strengthen surgical obstetric and anesthesia care in the country. The committee has a 5-year task to revolutionize surgical care delivery nationwide, targeting critical service gaps that currently impact 70% of Ghana's population.
Surgical care is an essential component of a well-functioning healthcare system. However, limited access to surgical, obstetric and anesthesia services, particularly in rural and underserved communities, has contributed to preventable deaths and disabilities. The ENSOP, will transform surgical care access for 21.56 million Ghanaians who currently lack timely surgical services. By 2029, the plan will be double the surgical workforce density. This strategic investment will reduce preventable deaths, particularly in rural areas where mortality rates are 40% higher, while strengthening Ghana's overall healthcare system.
Many Ghanaians, especially those in rural and underserved communities, face limited access to life-saving surgical interventions, contributing to preventable deaths and disabilities. The ENSO provides a structured framework to address these challenges in sustainable and measurable manner.
The National Surgical, Obstetric and Anesthesia Plan will need $502.6 million investment, which is equivalent to 0.33% of Ghana's yearly GDP, to be distributed across the 5-year period. This transformative initiative aims to revolutionize surgical care delivery nationwide, targeting critical service gaps that currently impact 70% of Ghana's population. The allocated funding will enable comprehensive healthcare system strengthening, encompassing both infrastructure enhancement and workforce development to create lasting improvement in surgical care accessibility and quality throughout all healthcare delivery tiers.
The role is to ensure that these interventions are effectively integrated into the Ghana healthcare system with measurable outcomes that improve patient safety, workforce development, infrastructure, and most important, financing mechanisms. The task ahead is daunting, is challenging, but with collaboration, strategic planning, and commitment, we can transform surgical and obstetric care delivery in our country, Ghana.
The 15-member committee will improve infrastructure, workforce, service delivery, financing, governance, and leadership, as well as information management.
This is a complex and large undertaking, but we believe this is what is needed, and also that Ghana's health system, with the excellent human resource, with the direction from the ministry, assistance from our development partners, resources provided as appropriate, and with cooperation from all.
That is how we wrap up with news tonight this evening. Many thanks to you for making the time, as always, to visit our website, starfm.com.gh, for lots more local and international stories. It was produced by Owisi Dede. I'm Natalie Fort. Have a wonderful evening.